Okay, guys, today's break, we're going to do a scrappy 9-patch, disappearing 9-patch border for this. But all I'm going to share with you guys is how to create the 2 different 9-patch blocks to create the disappearing 9-patch. I will draw a diagram and then we'll just do one setup, and I'll show you what I mean, because I'm going to use leftover strips that were too short for the quilt. I'm going to just use those for my border. So this quilt is called a Jelly Roll Race 2 on the Missouri Star Quilters YouTube channel. I will put a link to the video that I watched to do this. Instead of hooking the jelly roll together at the angle, you just put a little square, and they put the same color square. Well, I had some little 2.5-inch squares that I'd cut from leftover quilts. So I just interspersed the squares. Hi, Janice. Hi, Joan. Hi, Isla. So what you're seeing is my result of that. Okay, I was using strips that I had received from my quilting group over the years. Okay, we recently lost a member, so I felt like I wanted to put these strips together so I could remember Anne and we could go on. Well, in doing that, I made a really, really long quilt, which was way bigger than even a Supreme king size. So what I did is I removed some of the rows. I just took picked a spot and used my seam ripper, and I took this off. You see, I had this much more added to the length. Well, I took this off, and this is probably wide enough for a child's bed. Or what I could do is do another round, and all you do for the rounds is you bring your ends together, and I could just sew, and then when you get to the part that's down here before you get all the way to the end, you cut on the fold across, and then that way it would be longer in the opposite direction, which might look better than having the strips run this way on the bed. So I might do that, but this isn't the project I'm focused on. This is a secondary project. So I'm going to show you guys how to do the 9-patch blocks in strip piecing. Not necessarily you're going to piece blocks together. We're going to do strip piecing. Okay, so let me move the quilt out of the way. It was a lot of fun to make, and it takes a long time, and you have to have a lot of bobbins. So wind a bunch of bobbins. If you decide to do this quilt, wind a whole bunch of bobbins. I think I used about 5 or 6 full bobbins just to do this piecing. All right, so I'm going to put a border on it of these 9-patch blocks. I'm going to switch you guys. I got my cutting mat on the floor because that's where I do my cutting, on the floor. I'm hoping my back will hold up. So hang on, hang on. We'll move you over here. Woo, hang on. Ooh, rocky road here. All right, I don't know how the lighting's going to be, but we're going to make it work. Maybe move this over. That's a little better. You should see the setup, man. I had to move everything. That's why I don't do too many sewing. That's why I don't do too many sewing videos. In fact, I probably should have changed the bobbin. I'll do that. I've got one full. So this is the box I had been storing the strips in. And for the quilt, I used the strips that were full width of the fabrics. We can take that one because that's a shorty piece. And then these that are left in here were all strips that were like half the width of the fabric. You know, like when you buy fabric, you buy it 45, 55, 60 inches wide. Well, these are all shorter lengths, which I thought would be perfect for these disappearing 9 patches. All right, so we're going to draw a diagram, but let me say hi to everybody. Hi, Janet. Back up here. Holly, Janet, Janice, and Samantha. Hello. I see Barb Owen was on too. She's working on mandalas. So if mandalas is more interesting to you than quilting, feel free. Also, Lisa was on doing jelly printing. So there's a lot of people going live. So if quilting doesn't interest you, there's plenty of other people to go and watch right now. Let's see. Hi, Mindy. Hi, Gloria. I think that's everybody. Oh, hi, Gertie. All right. So to make a disappearing 9-patch border, what you're going to do is you're going to create 2 different blocks. The same technique, but different order. So one block will, so you've got your block here. And this is not to scale because I'm just drawing freehand. All right. So as we create one block, you'll have dark here, dark here, dark here in the middle, and then back to this corner in there. So the darker colored prints will go in these spots in one block. And then you'll have to make some more blocks, same way. And anybody that does quilting probably already knows this. But on this other block, you're going to do your darks in the 4 opposite positions. So you will want to create enough blocks so you have an even amount. So you'll do, like, we could do 10 of these and then 10 of those. So then when you put them together on like the side of a quilt, let's put some here together. I'll show you what happens. So this block will go here and here, and this block will go here and here. So when you put them on, I'm just going to color them in and do each one so I don't get my own brain confused. So there's that one like that. Then we'll put another one like that here. And I'm using 2.5-inch strips. And this will show you why they call it a disappearing 9-patch. Okay. So you've got the 2 blocks like that. So now you've got to do 2 blocks like this other block. And those that can visualize are probably already going, oh. So remember, now you're coloring the 4. So you put this one here and here and here. And once you start getting them pieced together, it's hard to tell where one block starts and the other block finishes. All right? So visually, it looks like you're just repeating the same block over and over, right? But you're not. You got 2 different blocks. So these 2, see, I can hardly even see it. Right here is the first block. Uh-oh, I got an ink booger on my thing here. And then this block and this block. And if I hadn't drawn those lines, it would be visually very hard to see, you know, where they changed out. All right, so now let's talk about the components of each block. Let's take this block right here. You can see we're going to need to create 3 strip sets for each of these blocks, right? So you'll need twice as many. Let's do this block first. You'll need twice as many of the dark light, dark, as you will the light, dark, light. So if we did that, you're going to end up, we're going to string piece, and I'll show you what that means here in just a minute. So if we break it down into their strips, my dryer's going off, you can hear it ringing. And then this strip will have the dark in the middle, and this strip. And that's the components to make the dark in the corner blocks. And then you'll do the same thing over here. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to divide them up, so ignore those lines. So now you can see you're going to need twice as many with the dark in the middle on this block as you will on this one. My plan is, I'm going to show you how to do each of the blocks, but then my plan is I'm just going to create a bunch of strip sets that make up these same components, and then I'm just going to cut them into the 2.5 inch segments, because this will be a 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. And then I'm just going to randomly grab what I need. Like I'll randomly grab some from this, and I'm going to try to make sure I'm using different fabric combinations in each section so that it looks as patchy as the rest of my quilt. Okay? Three strips, 2 types. It's actually 3 strips. Yeah, 2 types. Durr. Janice, you got it. So let's do this one first. So I'm going to do twice as many of the dark, light, dark. So I'm going to go ahead and create a strip set that looks like this, and another strip set with 3 different fabrics that could go here. All right. So we'll do that first. So we need the top, we need a dark. This is pretty dark. It doesn't matter if your strips are all the same length or not. That's entirely up to you. I want something light. This is pretty light right here. And see how this one's a lot shorter? And, oh no, it's folded. It's very thin. Hang on. That one I could have used in the quilt. Let me get something. This is definitely light. If my fingers will get a hold of it. All right. So then I'll lay this one here. And this is dark too. Now, if you wanted to, you could do your dark, light, dark out of the same fabric if you wanted to, but I want mine to be scrappy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch these together. I'll fold this one over on this one. Line up the edges, and I'm just going to run it through my sewing machine. And then when I open this back up, I want to make sure that the seam allowance presses toward the darkest color. And the reason you want to do that is because on the lighter fabrics, you'd see that seam allowance. So if you press it toward the dark, when you're done with your quilt, you don't see that dark edge running everywhere behind the thing. Mindy, this is a lot of strips. See, I sewed until I didn't have anything in the bobbin. I must have sewn right to the last stitch. Now, when I'm piecing, I use whatever color thread is on my machine. I like to use white or gray. Right now, I'm using a light blue. But when I'm piecing, all of that thread's going to be inside the quilt. So I don't necessarily worry about it. So if I come across some thread out thrifting or whatever, I go ahead and pick it up because I can use it for piecing. All right, so let me run this through. Do y'all want to see me run it through? It's going to be hard for me to do that. I'm just going to line it up, and I've got my 1/4 inch foot on my machine. And I'm not pinning because I'm just lining edge to edge, and then I kind of hold it with my fingers. And I stop with the needle down in the thread. I mean, yeah, down in the fabric. I'll get the right word out. All right. So cut that off. I didn't bring a trash can over here. So now I'm going to just open this. You don't want to stretch it, but just push it open like that. Make sure that the seam is still pointing that way. And then I'm just going to take my finger and finger press it. Usually before I cut components, I will press it with the iron. All right, so there's that piece. And get it all kind of finger pressed. All right, so now we lay it back down. This piece is going to come over the top, and we're going to sew it the same way. I'm going to have to flip the whole unit though, so it feeds into the machine the right way. So I'll go like this and feed it into the machine. All right, and I'll just line my edges up, and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch from that edge. Hi, Mary. I might try to move you all over so you can see how I do this. There are guards. If you're not confident in keeping your foot of your sewing machine right on the edge of your fabric, they do make guides that you can run your fabric along the guide. But after doing that Jelly Roll Race quilt top, I've gotten to be pretty good at just lining it up and going. It was a lot of practice, because you just hook them all together in one big line, and then you grab the end and you take it back up and you start again. So I probably started at over 1,000 inches of fabric, pulled back to make 900 inches, then pull back, make 400 and something inches. Oh, I don't need to go any farther because that other fabric's short. All right, so here we go. I got a 1/4 inch there, 1/4 inch there. We'll lay it so it's laying the right way, because you always want to press toward the dark. So we're pressing out. So if you press this over, we'll make sure it doesn't ride up. I didn't realize I'd done red, white, and blue. All right. So to make this nice and scrappy, I'm going to make another set just like this. Hi, Mary. So I'll finger press this all the way down here. All right, I'm going to set this aside. We'll come back to it. Let's make another set that's the dark, light, dark, light, dark. This could be a dark. And this one could be a light. Some of this looks like recycled, like blouse fabric, but that's okay. That's what quilts used to be, you know. And then something else dark. That could almost be considered a light. So, all right. So that could be. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'll lift you guys up so you can see my crazy Don, what is it, Don King or whatever hair, my crazy hair. All right, I'll line my edges up here. I line the edges and the end up when I'm starting, and then I don't worry about, I just go until I run out of fabric to stitch on. And I put my thread under the foot. So they're both under the foot. Make sure I'm lined up, and then I just start stitching. If you need to adjust, put your needle down in your fabric so that it doesn't move. If I had multiple cameras and such, I'd set one up so y'all could see it's being stitched too, but I don't. I'm doing the best I can with what I got. And there's a cutter on the side of your machine for anybody that doesn't know that. Usually it's either on the side or at the back, right behind the presser foot. There's usually sometimes a cutter on the back of your back here. Mine's on the side. You can use it to cut this too. All right. So I'm going to put you back down to the table. Whoops. I keep hitting the computer. And I forgot to turn the autofocus on. Sorry, Janet. I forgot to do it. Or not on, but off. Let me do that real quick because it's probably jumping you guys all over the place. We'll turn that off. And I think I'm at a pretty good distance. Are you guys seeing okay? Hi, Amy. All right. Is that okay? All right. So now I'm going to turn this so that when I'm bringing this over, it's going to automatically fold toward the dark. And that's where you want it to go. You want it to always go toward the darker fabric so you don't see it under your light fabrics, that seam. It makes for a better finish on your quilt. Always press to the dark side. And like I said, all of these came from my quilting group over the years that we had swapped for, and I'd just been shoving them in the box. And I decided it was time to turn them into a quilt. So I'll make a bunch of these 9-patch that'll be disappearing 9-patch as I put them around. I think Barbara Clark said she's working on a disappearing 9-patch quilt, which I would love to see that if Barbara wants to share it sometime. I'd love to see it. Even if it's just a picture in one of the groups, that would be awesome. All right, so I finger pressed. And like I said, I would generally take the time to press it really well with my iron, but I'm not going to mess with the iron today. So, yeah, I'm just not going to. All right, I'm going to now turn this. See how that's kind of crooked there? Let's get some scissors and straighten that up just a little bit. Uh-oh, the Barbie dolls took a dive here. They need some clothes. Keep having these Barbies sitting around naked. I need to get them clothed. Maybe that'll be a project one day. But I've been loving having the beads that Tanya sells for scissor keepers. I got me one for every single one of my fabric shears. So I can say, none shall pass. All right. So again, you're going to put them face together. And I'll flip the whole thing at the machine just to make it easier for me. I could sew from the other end, but all right. So I'm just going to bring this and line it up, stitch it down, and then we'll have our two that are dark to whatever. Let's see. I could actually show you guys how to make both blocks with this one strip. Or 3 strips. I'll have 3 strips so I can cut. I just want them to be all scrappy, scrappy. And I couldn't find my big square ruler when I did that clean out, I'm hoping I didn't pack it away in a box. I found another ruler I can use, but it's just not the same. You know, it's not the one I'd been using. I got a little wonky there, but we're going to go with it. All right. So again, I'm folding to the dark side the best I can here. A big old pile of strips is getting in the way now. See, if I had my iron, I could hit this with some steam and it would flatten it all out. But I don't have the iron out today. But you really do want to press. I'm just doing this as an example. And I don't want to keep you long because it looks like a lot of people are doing, you know, stress break gatherings. And I think it's fun that we're getting to see all different kinds of projects today. All right. So we're going to set this one aside. Okay. Now we got to build the opposite. So we need a dark in the middle. How about this nice dark purple? Put a dark in the middle and we need two lights. Here's one with parasols on it. Like I said, this is fabric that I have collected over the years. That's just like what we used in that other one. I don't want to use the same one. Let's say we'll dig through here and see what we can find. That here's one. And see, it's just a short little piece, but that it'll still make some blocks. All right. So now we're going to sew this together like that. No, I didn't cut all these strips. I cut some of them, but most of these are from years of swaps with my quilt group. I can cut 2.5-inch strips really fast, though, with my rotary cutter and rulers and mats. But no, I didn't cut all these. And if you think about the quilt base that showed at the beginning, I had a whole lot more that were total widths of fabric. These are just parts of the width of a fabric that I didn't use. I think that's all I'm going to do. Once I get those pieces, I'm going to put the rest of these strips out of our way. I'm going to put these over here out the way, back in the box. The box that they've lived in for years. All right, so these are our darks, dark, light, darks. So we're going to keep those over here out of the way. And I'll even keep the pieces that I trim away. But let's build this up. So now when we press this one, we want all of the seams to go toward the middle because it's the dark now. And then, yes, 9 patches. We're going to do the disappearing 9 patch like you did with strips. So on this one, you want the seams to go toward the dark again. And by doing this, you create a locking mechanism between the blocks that look like this, or the strips that look like that, and the strips that look like this. So when you put these together, the ones that fold in toward this will lock right down in here because those go toward the dark the opposite way. I'll show you what I mean when we get there. Let's sew this together real quick. And I don't have my iron out, so we're going to just do. Hi, Emma and Barbara and Kathy Whitney. I think the dog just pooted. Oh, dog poots. She's sitting right behind me, so that's extra special. Oh. My dryer says, come on, lady. We're done with your clothes. Come get them. And I'm only going to do 2 blocks with y'all today. Because like I said, I want to do a bunch of strip sets. And then I want to put like all of my dark lights, darks in a box, and all of my lights, darks, lights in another box, and then just randomly pick and create blocks. Yeah, she's sleeping, so she's just letting them fly, I think. I took her out right before I came on here. My son is really, he says he's over dogs. He does not. We've always just had cats. So when we had these 2 dogs, now we're down to 1. He said he's over it. He'll always just be a cat daddy. All right, and I'm just finger pressing. If you put some heat to it, it's better. Okay, so you can see, pressed it toward the dark. See how the seam is folded this way? You want to do that everywhere. All right, now let's put the little parasol fabric on here. And again, I'm going to flip the whole thing so I can feed it through the machine easier. But if you're into quilting and you want to learn new blocks, I recommend, oh, now the name went right out my head. I hate that. I'll put the link to it. But there, Martha, is it Martha Horn? Oh, I'll remember it. The Quilter's Cache. She has hundreds and hundreds of blocks. You can just do you can do a sampler quilt, pick a size, and then do all of the blocks within that size, and then you can create a project with that. That is a lot of fun. I think the lady's last name is Horn, Horne, I think. Is it Marsha? I can't remember. Okay, so again, I'm going to press toward the dark. So if I leave it this way and then fold it over, it'll go toward the dark. You just don't want to pull and warp the fabric. If you warp it, then you'll have a quilt that looks like it's the sea under heavy weather. And it'll be impossible for your long arm quilter to do it. I have a friend that does long arm quilting, and she always hates getting a lumpy, bumpy quilt. It's almost impossible to get to do right. All right. So there we go. That's our, the camera is really having issues with that dark in the middle, isn't it? It's too much light. It can't focus. All right. I'm going to switch you guys over. Greg works at the Home Depot warehouse, so his job is pretty secure, and he works nights. So, yeah. Yeah, you can stitch. Well, she does. She doesn't do stitching in the ditch. Diane has a computerized machine where she does all of the great big designs. She's up in Maine. All right, I'm going to switch you guys and show you how to cut these into the strips you need for the components. And Mary always goes, oh, she's got to get down on the floor. Yep, I'm going to get down on the floor. Let me see what that looks like for you guys. I don't know that I can zoom in. Let's see if I can get it to zoom down. Oh, Barbara's got to go. Bye, Barbara. Thanks for stopping by. All right. I know that this isn't everybody's, cup of tea and all, which is fine. I'm going to try to get it to bring me down closer to the mat. That's as close as it goes without me messing with the framus there. So I'm going to do the best I can to show you guys how to get the components you need. And I'm only going to do two blocks, okay? So let's start with our light block. So the one block, what I do is I don't want any salvages, like this has got some salvage because it's got all of the set stitches on the side. I trim that away so that the block will lay flat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line a line up like this number 7 on my seam line right here. And then I'll just trim this away. Okay. Now I'm going to line this up with a line on my cutting mat. And I want to line this up. Let's see, 1, 2.5. I'm going to line this up with the 2.5. But to make sure I'm straight, I'm going to line my seam up on the 4-inch mark and make sure I've got it at the 1/2 inch up there. So I'm lining my line up here. This should be 2.5 right here because I'm lined up along here. I've got this at 2.5 because that's 1, 2.5. And I'm just going to cut that off. So there's this here. And I'm going to go ahead and cut 3 of these because remember on one block you're going to have 2 of these and then on the other block we'll have 1. So that's a 1/2 inch, 1, 2. So if I line this up at 25 and then again I line my seam at the number 4, I can make sure I'm getting a 2.5 inch strip. And you can also come down on, when it's on a whole number, you can line up the line there and down here. So basically that's for the one that's got the lights in the corners. And then I'm going to come over 1, 2.5. I don't know if I'm in frame with the pieces I've cut or not, okay? So now let's build our block. You know what? I wanted another one of these. I should have made another one of these because I want this to be different. I needed another light, dark, light. Yeah, that's okay. We'll roll with it. So I'm going to line this up. Well, let's first get it trimmed smooth. You guys will get the gist of it from what I've got here, but I might not keep them for this quilt. I might use them as something I stack away. So I'm going to line the 6-inch on my seam that I made, and then I'm going to trim the end off like that. And then I'm going to line this up maybe on the 19, like that. And then I'll count 1, 2.5, so at 21.5, the tip of that, and I'll line my number 4 up with my seam again. I just don't want to move the fabric, just moving the ruler. Make sure I've got it square. And I'll cut one more. Let's see. I'm going to move this over so it's at a full amount there. So that'd be 1, 2.5. I can't see chat, you guys. I just hope I'm in shot. And I'll use this in the center of this one here. And see, this is where I'd want another light to dark strip. I might make another one and just cut a section for that. And then this one is your other block. So we only need to cut one more thing off this one. I hope I'm making sense. I'm about ready to be off the floor. Scott says, one day you're going to have a wonderful studio with a nice cutting table so you don't have to get on the floor anymore. I said, well, I hope you're right. He said, we'll make it happen. It's like, well, I'm not going to be able to do this much longer. It tears my knee up. I got to do this repeatedly to make this quilt. All right, I'm going to line that up at the 22 again. Make sure it's straight. I'm just trying to find a whole amount to line it up to is what I'm doing. And then come over the 2.5 inches, so 23, 24 and a half. And line the seam up. All right. I'm going to quickly put together another section with these, with the dark in the middle. It'll only take me a second. And I can see if I've got you guys where you can see them. Yeah, you can see them. So I need a light. I've already used that one. A light. A dark. That's kind of light. We'll use that. I'm just going to go with how I've got the other. Let's see. Dark. That's almost the same value. That'll work. Right there. All right. Just mind the blocks for me. Make sure nobody runs off. Yes, Barb. This is going to go on my quilt I showed at the beginning. And if for anybody that doesn't know, if you want to see that quilt again, you can go back to the beginning while I'm on here live. So I'm going to create a whole bunch of really scrappy 9-patch blocks, some with the darks in the corners, some with the lights in the corners, and then go every other one all the way around that strip quilt. But I will, before I add all of these blocks, I will probably put something dark like a solid black or a deep green or deep blue or deep purple, just a narrow, maybe 1.5 inch band to create a border around the middle and then a border around the blocks that I'm currently creating. It just gives your eye a place to stop, rest, and then look on at the rest of the quilt, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? You always want to have some areas of a scrappy quilt that bring back the calm so that you can enjoy the excitement of all the different prints, but then your eye has somewhere to fall to rest for a moment. And when in doing that, your quilt becomes a whole lot more appealing than if every ounce of it is wild and crazy. Not saying that wild and crazy is not good too, if that's what you're looking for. But I always like to put something solid in with all the prints. That's just a calming moment for your eye. And generally when I am piecing these, I put like a movie on or somebody's YouTube channel. If you've got a playlist that I can click on and just let you play, I love to do that. I need to get better about making playlists for my own videos. I'm horrible about it. And putting the little tags on the quilt on the videos, I'm trying to get better about it, but I never remember to do that. Crazy quilts are your favorites to look at. Yes. I like to do smaller projects with crazy quilting, you know, where you're doing all the little special stitches and things. Am I doing the right piece? Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to add that. I was thinking, I hope I'm making the right strip. Got my mouth running and forgetting what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to add this piece to the other side. Sorry I'm making y'all watch the floor, but I didn't want to make you dizzy too much. I'll have this done and we'll I'll bring you back up and we'll stitch those blocks together. And then that's all I was going to show y'all. Because if you can make one or two of these, you can make a whole pile of them. I don't have all the fancy equipment to switch a camera over here and switch a camera over there. So doing the best I can. With a stinky dog behind me. Oh, I got some thread hanging. All right, I just got to finger press this and then I'll bring it over and we'll cut another piece. And I'll just cut these units all up. I just make a bunch of strips and cut the units up as far as, you know, darks in the centers or darks in the corners. And then what I can do is just randomly pick them. And before I know it, it'll just be a scrappy border ready to go. I just do every other one. And I had that folded the right way at the beginning. There we go. And now this one's the wrong way. Always want to press toward the dark so that seam is not visible and the components locked together. It's because I'm trying to hurry. If I would just calm my fanny down, I'd be doing fine. I don't know why I'm in a hurry. Don't have to be anywhere, right? We don't have to be anywhere. You're making a jean quilt with crumbs in the middle. Crumbs are all your little bits that you snip off as you're going on other quilts, aren't they? All right, so here we go. Here's another 2 lights, 1 dark. And I'll take the time and trim all those others up. So we're just gonna, this one's not wanting to stay as it should. I only need one of these trimmed off anyway. So let's see if I can get just 1 strip trimmed off here. This is much easier if you press them nice and flat, but again, I'm trying to do this on the fly. So line that up. I'm going to line it up with the 23. So that 25.5 will give me a 2.5 inch strip. So when I am done, I will have a bunch of 6-inch blocks. And 6-inch blocks is the finished size. So they should be 6.5 when I get done. So there you go. I got the 2 different blocks. So let's put them together. And then I'll sew them next to each other so you can see why it's called a disappearing 9 patch. All right, I'm going to switch you guys back over here onto the table. See if I can do it a little bit smoother this time. You get to see my toes. Woo-hoo. I'm going to come up over the leg of the lamp. All right, there we go. Okay. Josie, look up the Jelly Roll race on the Missouri Star Quilters. And I did the one that I did for this quilt that I have that I'm making this border for. I did the Jelly Roll race 2. And I'm going to put the link to that in the description box after I sign off. All right. So now let's put the one with the light corners together. This is my light corner blocks. On this piece, the seams are pressed toward the middle. On this one, they're pressed toward the outside. So then when you put this one on top of that one, this is what I mean, they lock together. See how they just, the middle block fits right down between those, and then because the seams go in two different directions, it locks in place. And that way you don't have to go back and forth. Oh, yeah, you can do crazy quilt blocks if that's what you're talking about. Yeah, the fabric book, I do them on felt. I'll pull that out. So I want to sew this seam down through here real quick. Hang on. I'll pull that out when I finish these two blocks. And again, I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam. And I use my 1/4 inch foot on my sewing machine. And to find out what foot you have, if you don't know, you measure from where the needle is to the edge of the foot with the needle in the down position, and that'll tell you if you've got your 1/4 inch foot in there. Yeah, I forgot, Kathy, you and I were going to swap for those. We need to do that. All right. So this actually goes this way. All right. So again, these have 2 darks and 1 light. So I'm going to fold this seam toward the darks, which should go toward the middle. So I'm going to fold that way. And I know right here you're going to be able to see the seam, but you have to pick your battles on that one. I have seen people snip to the stitching and then fold it toward the dark. Do I want to do that? No. All right, so now we're going to put this one on this side here. And again, they lock together because the seams are pressed in opposite directions. That just keeps it from wobbling all over the place on you. So now I can tell you guys, I need to make about maybe 30 of these. Could be more. I haven't done the math. I need to do the math. I'll pull that fabric book out after I do this other one. And again, I'm going to press toward the piece that has 2 darks. So those would both press toward the center. So that's 1 block done. So, woohoo! Now we got to do the ones with the darks in the corners instead of in the center. All right, so we'll take this one. And again, now it's going to be the one that's on top goes that way on the top piece and the opposite way in the other, but they still lock together. All right, so we'll sew this up. Oh, got to get my thread under my foot. I missed the part where we were talking about fabric books. I was working on a quilt. 2 different projects. Y'all got me going. All right, so now the one that has the most darks this time is the one that's in the center. So I'll fold this way. No, it's the one that's on the outer edge. So this one goes to the out because this is the dark in the corner block. I got myself confused that time. So now we'll put this piece on here. And I'm going to turn it so I can sew down that side. And this is just meant to be a scrappy, scrappy border. All right, and I'll fold toward the dark, which is the outer edge this time. So now if you take this one and put this one next to it, these are folded toward the middle dark section, and these are folded to the outer corners. So when you turn and lock these together to create an running, see how it locks together there? Now I'll stitch these two together and we'll see if you all can pick out where the blocks are. I probably should square these up, make sure they're nice and perfectly square, but I figure I can just get them all sewn together and then square up my whole run if I want to. The best practice, though, is to make sure they're all exactly the same size before you hook them together. All right. And just like that, we have the start of a disappearing 9-patch border. And see, I used the same red and didn't mean to. And I've got, that's the same fabric. That's why I wanted to do a bunch of them and then pick and choose. It is what it is. Yeah, that happened to me several times with piecing that quilt, Kathy. I'd be like 3 feet down and realize it was opening up behind the sewing machine needle, which really kind of stinks because you got to go all the way back there. And all right, so there's that. Ta-da! I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that piecing. We did that in about an hour. So if you multiply that by, I don't know how many, I've got, this is a repeat here too. I got plenty of repeats in these. That was the whole idea of making them a bunch of the different combinations and throwing them in a bucket and then just randomly pick. So let me grab my fabric book. It's right here actually. And Lisa made this book, you guys. So she made it out of I think an old sheet. We'll set that aside. But I can show you the pages I have. I might need to back out just a little bit. We're in about as far as it would go while we were down on the floor. I'm going to back out just a little here. Okay. Ruth had a question above. I have two full-size quilts for 2 of my sons. I would say go to the Quilter's Cache, Ruth. She has it's Quilters, Quilters, and then Cache is Cache. And she has hundreds of quilt patterns to pick from. Exactly, Janet. I told Scott that yesterday. I said, this machine makes all these other noises. It should say, bobbin about to run out. It should exactly say that. Or beep, 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 beep. I was watching Stephen Bland this morning. He was working on a quilt this morning too. And his machine tells him when a thread breaks. But I don't have the money to spend $3,000 on a sewing machine right now, so I can't do that. Uh-oh. Sounds like you have a tension issue, Janet, if your thread broke that easy. So I'm just going to flip through, and we did this together, and you can see I like to build on a 6-inch square piece of felt. So I just have I cut a 6-inch piece out, and I use my pinking shears because I like the way that edge looks. And I have, because when Lisa sent this to me, it's just a sheet together. And to give it a little bit more strength, I did glue 2 pages together because they're like this here. So I think these are just old sheets that she dyed. And I'll take these and put E6000 on them and glue them together. And then I put my built up on felt pieces on there. I found a kit that Barb sent me to make a block to stick in here. And when I do one of these, I have these little garment tags, and I put the date and my initials. And then this is one I made with stuff I had on hand. And then I just kind of tuck it away. This was by Barb Filion, and it was done in 2018, page completed with items sent to me by Barb Filion in our stuffed altered bag swap in Aunt Beck's Creations. And then I just kind of tuck that in there. So Barb sent the stuff to me, and then I created the page. I like to put little information like that so that, in the future, like now, when I'm talking to you guys, I can remember who did what. Something to keep in mind when you're doing pages, it'll depend on which side of the page somebody is putting the item in. Like this, I should have done in a mirrored reverse. So the ribbon was toward the outer, this bow was on this outer edge instead, because the bow gets crunched. So let's see. This one was from my partner, Janet. Fabric page swap. And see, this one, I just put the little luggage tag on a safety pin and pinned it to Janet's page, and then I glued it in my book. So Janet made me that one. That way, if I wanted to, I could, take that all, but I don't want to. And then this one, it's got a little, I stapled this one on. This one says Ruth Lamb, Canada, May 25th, 2019. So Ruth made me that one. And she did it on a base too. See, there's the felt base. And sometimes the felt goes past the pages, and I'm okay with that because Lisa, she just hand ripped this. So the pages are a little different sizes, but then she just stitched together. It steps on it. Barb Filion, 2019. This was one Barb sent me. And I didn't leave a place to tuck my little tag, so it just hangs in there. This was a slow stitch that I started. And if you've never done slow stitching, it's a lot of fun. You don't worry about raw edges. You just take strips of fabric, set them down on a base like this is muslin. You could do this straight on your piece of felt if you wanted to. And then you just take different colored embroidery thread and then just do a random running stitch is what I did. And I just like the way it looks. And then I'll just mount that in there. I don't think I'll even add anything else to it. I think it's just going to be a slow stitch page. And I'll put a piece of felt to give it some sturdiness. And I'll glue 2 pages together. I need to go through and just glue 2 pages together. But I usually do it, as I'm working through. But yeah, Lisa had gotten this old sheet. I think some of this is tea dyed or something because it's a little darker. And then some, it looks like she used inks on or something. It just makes for a pretty looking pages. So yeah, and I figured 6 inches is about perfect for my little book. But if your book's a little larger or something, you would just make that. Yeah, white bed sheets. But I think she's dyed them with something. Because see how this one's pink? I mean, blue and pink and yellow. I think she put sprays or something on it. But she got it at a thrift store. And she just ripped it up. And I thought, what a perfect idea. So I would love to swap fabric journal pages with anybody. If you put it on a 6-inch base, and then I can just throw it in my book. And when I put them in the book, I just put E6000 on the back of them and stick them on the pages, the double pages where I've glued 2 pages together. And I think this is going to be quite the chunky monkey by the time I get, you know, all these pages filled up. But it'll be something fun to look back through. Hi, Suze. You can't find Quilter's Cash? Give me just a sec. Marsha Horn. Copy. There you go. And I'm telling you, you can look it up by on that website. You can look up quilt patterns by size. You can look them up by the name. If you know the name of a quilt block that you're looking for, you can look up by difficulty. She has from super easy to really intricate paper piecing and 5,000, or at least it looks like 5,000 pieces in one block. Yeah, if you're talking about crazy quilting, Kathy, or the slow stitching, like here, I could use this as a crazy quilt block, and I could do this slow stitching, but then I could also, on the edges here, I could add more embroidery if I wanted, or you can stitch lace to it. So like this is here. Let me grab some stuff out of the back. You can do whatever you want to decorate your blocks. Sorry, Bernie. I know you're trying to shave. We'll go walkie in a minute, okay? We'll go walkie. Yeah. I know. Poor little puppy. Poor little puppy. Oosh. Oosh. What? Why do you make that noise? Huh? Here we go. Here's a nice bag of stuff. In fact, I might play with this while I'm with you guys so you can see different ways. We're kind of going off what we came on to do, but that's okay. So you could take a bit of lace, and I could take this to my sewing machine right now, and I could stitch it on. I might do that. You don't want to sew everything on. You could glue it with some fabric tack or whatever. I'm going to sew this on real quick. And if I had a dip on, I could do a zigzag stitch. It's not like in the layers I got. I'm not sure why it's not stitching. There we go. So see, you could stitch that on. I've got some of this green stretchy stuff. I could put some of that maybe on this one. Go this way on here. Or if you wanted to do hand stitching, you could. Let's see if I can stitch this on here. I'm just using the blue thread that's here in the machine since this is a block for me anyway, for my book. Let's see. She's decided it's time to eat since I'm bothering her nap time. But see, you could do all different kinds of stuff on here. There's some little bows in here. You might want to stick a little bow on, maybe like right there. Whatever you have as far as trims and such. Like here's a little piece of brown. I could maybe even fold that in half so it's double and stitch it here. And you just build it up any way you want to. Does that help at all? Bernadette, they want to say hi. You want to say hi? She's wiggling her tail at you, Mary. She's ready to go. You want to go walkie? I think we're going to tell you guys bye and take her for a walkie. Kathy, let me know. Does that answer your questions? There's Bernadette. Yeah, these are 6x6 to go in the little journal that Lisa made me. 6x6, and you build it up on a piece of 6x6 felt, and then just build up on top of it any old way you want to. These are just some of the pages that I've made and or received. And they can be, you know, as easy or, you know, complicated as you want to make them. Ruth glued some beads on there, I think. So yeah, these are a lot of fun to swap, and it doesn't cost a lot to mail them together. So we talked about the fabric journal. I hope that answered Kathy's questions. I really do. I hope it did. And then we did our disappearing 9 patch with the strips today. I shared the quilt. Let me get the quilt. I don't know if everybody got to see it, so let me point y'all up to my dress form in the closet. She's hiding out back there. And I'll see if I can stand over here and hold this up. Most people saw it on my Facebook page. But this is, if you go to Missouri Star Quilters, this is called a Jelly Roll Race 2. And that's just done with a jelly roll. And then mine wasn't done with a jelly roll. Mine was just done with 2.5-inch strips and then 2.5-inch squares. She's got one method where you connect all of the pieces, all of the strips, which are the width of the fabric, and you attach them together with a 45-degree angle. But I like the second method where you just add the little squares like this, because you just add a little square to the end of a strip, and then you add another strip, and then add a square, then a strip, and you just keep going until you have one huge long strip and square piece. And then when you get all the way to the end and you're not adding any more of the strips, grab the, oh, Janet said the links are above. You grab the end where you stopped and you go back to and find the very beginning of your big, long, hundreds of inches long strip. You find the very beginning and you put them face together, and then you just start sewing. You have to kind of fight with the strips as you go because they're in one great big huge pile on the floor. But then you sew all the way to the end. And when you get near the end, you kind of work the strip that you're working will come to the end. Then guess what you do? You grab the end and you go all the way back and you find your beginning and you start sewing those two pieces together until you get to the end where you reach the fold, and then you cut on the fold, and then again you do that over and over. That's why they call it a jelly roll race. But you end up with a beautiful quilt. And all of these strips were gifted or cut by me from the members of my online quilt group. So like we had you can see the hearts. We had a Valentine's Day one. We did flower swaps. I can't remember some of the themes. I think we did like hot peppers one time. summer. We did 4th of July. There's just all kinds of stuff in here. I'm surprised there's not some Christmas. There's some autumn. So, yeah. So feel free to check out the Jelly Roll race. It's a lot of fun. But like I said earlier, if you're going to do it, have you a ton of bobbins wound ahead of time, because you will go through bobbin thread. And this is going to be like almost a king size quilt when I'm done. But I'm going to make the scrappy border. This will go around the outer edge after I put a narrow, plain, dark color border. So I always like to do like that break. Yep, you can do that too. And Gloria's saying if you take the shorter pieces of strips and sew them end to end, then you can make a binding as well for your quilts. Okay? Did everybody have fun? Did you learn a little something? Are you going to make some disappearing 9-patch borders? So anyhow, I'll sit back down here and say goodbye. Bye. And Bernadette and I think I'm going to take her for a walk up to the corner. Okay, and tomorrow, what can we do tomorrow, you guys? What do you want to do tomorrow? I'm going to come on at 3 tomorrow. And maybe we'll just do pick 10 in our pick 10 journals. All right. Thank you, guys. I'll see you guys later. Bye.